Alright everyone, this is just a rundown of how we create our textures for the tileable ground project that we're doing. So what we need to make sure that we have here is the 3 provided textures. So we have asphalt, we have the bare earth and dry earth, and those are all opened already in Photoshop. You'll notice they're each showing up when I click on these tabs. The next thing we're going to do is create a new project here. So we're going to create a new PSD, and I want it to be 512 by 512 pixels. So I'll hit create. Now that I have that, I'm going to go right in my asphalt and Control A to have it selected, and Control C. So when I go into here and hit Control V, I've got that pasted into my scene, but it's very, very small. So if I hit Control T, you'll notice it's a lot bigger than that size. So what I need to do is scale that. So if I go to the edge of this right here and hold down Shift and drag, it's going to decrease the size of that texture. So that's getting pretty good. Let's say it's about there. I like that. I'll hit enter. That's going to end that transformation and give me something like this. Now the first thing I want to do is go ahead and duplicate this, and I'm going to offset that. So I'm going to go to filter, other, offset. Now that I have that offset, it's doing it 256 by 256. That's pretty good. And I'm going to just zoom in here. I can see sort of this little change in the seam. So I want to make sure I'm not having something like that. Remember, all we have to do is mask it. So if we mask this and then paint that out, I'm going to hit the B key and hit X to flip that color. Just trying to get rid of some of those seams that I had there. Now if I increase my brush, I'm zooming in and out to see if there's any major obvious changes, and I can see it's a little bit of a line here and here. So again, I'm going to zoom in, hit the B key, try and paint some of those other spots out. And yes, that sounds like a dying cat in the background. It's my printer. Okay, I've got that going. I'm actually going to just merge this down. So right click, merge down, and now I have this layer. What I want to do now is turn this into a smart object. So to be able to do that, what we'll do is right click on this object, and you'll see convert to smart object available. Okay, I've got that created. It doesn't look like much, but this object is actually going to allow for us to do a little bit of other things and prevent us from having any destructive transformations or anything like that on our piece. So let's see what we can do. First off, I see there's whoop, I don't know why that. Let me make sure I convert. There we go. Let me see if I can just tweak this one little spot here. I'm going to use I'm going to go back actually before I go into smart object, and I see this little dot here. So all I'm going to do is increase my brush size with a closed bracket, sample maybe over here, and push that down. Okay, that's better. Let's convert that back to a smart object. So we're just going to right click, convert, and now I am going to duplicate this layer, and on this one right here I'm going to go into filter, blur, and average. And when I do this, it's just going to give me a color. It's going to give me a blurred average. That's extremely helpful. Now what's nice about that is because it's a smart object, if I turn that off, it brings me back to that last like vanilla state before I went into there. So we can see the progression of this. With this next one, I'm now going to go into my layers here, and underneath normal, I'm going to click on that and change that to being linear light. So if I go into linear light right here, you'll notice all of a sudden it got really dark, but what that ended up doing is actually it's going through, so it's sort of projecting that into that gray, which is really nice. The problem is that it's just way too intense, so I'm going to drop that down to about 50%. Okay. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and click on that again, making sure I have this layer right here. Then we're going to go to Filter, Other, and then we're going to go into High Pass. And you'll notice High Pass kind of took out some of those other colors that were in there. So it really did help me in getting rid of some of the... here, I'll hit Cancel. It kind of made it a little bit more uniform for a texture. So let me do that again. Filter, Other, High Pass. There we go. It kind of evened out all those tones. I like that. The increase of that will cause some of those shadows happening again. Decreasing that will kind of even all that out. So I want to kind of have a happy medium, so it's not all just evened out, or it's not having little gray shadows everywhere. And I kind of like right here. Alright, I like this. I'm going to grab both of these two and group it. Control G. This is going to be called Road. Alright, now I'm going to hide that one. I'm also going to make sure I do a save here. So save as, and I'm going to put this inside of my folder that I need to make. So I'll make a new folder, and we'll call this the tileable ground, and we'll call this tileable ground. So now that I have this, now I can keep working. I'm going to go into my bare earth. I'm going to hit Control A, Control C, and Control V, and I have that in here. What I'm trying to do is scale that down again so it's getting enough texture data for my image. Again, you don't want to sample something if it just doesn't have a lot of detail. It's not really worth the texture. So what we're trying to do is scale it down enough that it's something we can work with. We're also trying to find a spot that looks pretty nice. What I can tell you right now, just by looking at this, down here there's a noticeable path or some sort of tread around here as well. So I don't think I want to use that. I think I want to use something more higher up. So I think I'm going to go maybe here and maybe scale that up just a tad. Hit enter. And what we need to make sure we're doing as well is cropping. Because if we just offset and we don't crop, then what we're going to end up having is this image that offsets is going to be completely useless to us. Because if we do filter offset right now, that's not really what we're looking for. We need to make sure that we crop this first, and now we do a filter offset. But before I even do that filter offset, let me just duplicate this. Okay, and now for this top one, I'll perform that filter offset. Okay, and we can see that there's those four corners very clearly, that those are four different tones. So we need to fix that. Some of the stuff that I'm going to do to fix that is create a layer mask and hit the B key and just start kind of trying to brush out some of those spots. Now if you reveal a spot that you don't want, like that chunk of grass, we can go around that. What we're trying to do is just kind of make a texture that feels as uniform as possible. Zooming in and out to see if we have any spots. We have another spot here showing up. So I'm going to go into here, try and paint that out. And remember, it's not just painting out. If we have a spot that starts to show up again, we can paint that spot back in. It's just a matter of being slow and steady on this. that's a very obvious spot for a repeating texture that we don't want to deal with. So again, I'm going to go to white, and then instead of painting out, I'm painting in that mask to prevent that from showing up. Over here, I'm not a huge fan of the fact I've got a huge piece of grass showing up on both ends here. So I'm going to paint that out as well. So I have this side, and I'm going to go over here, paint that out too. Now I see another giant piece. Be careful about going around edges around here. I know I just did that here. I'm going to offset this just to double check if my geometry or my texture looks wrong. So I'm going to go back to filter offset and see when these come together what I'm looking at. And right now we have this big thing in the middle. I don't like that, so I'm going to, whoop, don't want to paint it. I just want to make it go away. And let's see, that's our texture. So we're repeating these two pieces, that's okay. Let's filter offset that one more time. Oops. Filter offset, there we go. And my mask, even though it's linked, isn't repeating with me. So there we go. Make sure when you're doing the filter offset that this changes along with this one. So you'll know if it's doing that if this, when you hit filter offset, it's going to give you a different look to that. So that's pretty good. I think I'm going to use this. So I'm actually going to duplicate these. So first I'm going to group them. We'll call this dirt work. And I'm going to duplicate that. This is something I want you guys to get used to. This one now, I'm going to merge all the contents together. So merge this group. And now I'm going to take that vanilla one that we had behind that, the one that we were alpha, working with the alpha on. And I'm going to bring that back up. Hide the dirt work again. Group these two, and for this one I just want to see if I can paint out a couple of these other details that I'm really not a huge fan of. So one of those things, first let me offset this, so filter offset. Okay, I've got this thing right here, and I've got some rocks, things like that. I don't like those, so let's see if we can fix that. And first thing I'm going to do is just go into, let's see if this spot heal brush works. So I'm going to increase the size of that and just press that button. It kind of did. Not too bad. There's some little spots, I know there's a circle there, so I kind of don't like that. But that did help. Let's see if we can get rid of this rock too. It's a little bit too, oops. It's a little bit too unique to stand, and it'll stand out in a texture. So there's certain things you should be looking for when you make a repeating texture, and one of those things are, yeah, you want something that looks exciting to look at, but you also don't want it to be the star of the show. Repeating textures are generally things that would be in the background of your film or your animation or game, and so that's not supposed to be your hero object or your hero piece. It's supposed to blend in. If we don't do that and we make it so there's giant rocks and boulders everywhere, you're kind of missing the whole point on that. I like that. I'm gonna go ahead and filter offset again. Okay, that offset how it was supposed to. I'm gonna paint out some other little spots here. So I'm gonna go into my mask. Yeah, I got that one doesn't want to go. So I'm going to go into my spot heal again, reduce the size of it, doesn't need to be that big. There we go. Got some shadows here. Little chunk of grass. And it's looking pretty good. I'm going to call this done for my dirt. And so I'm going to go ahead and name that the bare earth. And now I have my road and my bare earth. Actually, let's name this one asphalt. So ASPHALT. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, just to keep these organized by each one, I can grab those two and group those. So having both these selected, group those, and we'll call that one bare earth as well, so that way we know. And we can give this the final. So now we know which ones we're looking at. This is something an art director would be expecting from you, so he can dig through, or she can dig through your files and make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Now I have this. So this is going to be my dry earth. I'm going to hit Control C and Control V. And again, this is gigantic, and we have some spots here that clearly are going to be a pain in the butt for repeating textures. So we want to choose an area that we think can represent dry earth with some plants in there that are manageable. And right now this is not looking manageable with all these little plants and all that. So what I'm trying to do is just find a really nice spot to start this texturing process. And I had Control T, and I'm just scaling this down. Trying to find a spot that I like. This does not need to be the same for you. And let's say that I'm gonna go with right here. I'm gonna hit enter. Now I picked a more difficult spot compared to what you guys could do. I did this on purpose because I want you guys to explore. This is not the most optimal spot, but I'm going to use this as my example. I'm going to grab this marquee selection tool, drag across again, and image crop. That gets rid of all those other areas. So if I hit Control T, now I just have that main spot again. Alright, now that I have that, what I need to do is duplicate it, filter other offset, okay, and you'll see, yeah, this is a hot mess. There's a lot of things that should not be where they are. So we need to fix that. And to do that, what I'm going to do is start trying to figure out what can go and what needs to stay. Right away, I see when I offset this, everything in the middle, all these corners right here, those can't stay. They have to be modified. So I'm going to go into my layer. I'm going to make a mask. And I'm going to start painting out some spots here. Now this is up to you on your decisions. Think about the story you're telling about this piece. It's dry. And we want to show the type of plants that grow here. And so right now what I'm doing is trying to follow. If I end up going over a plant that I don't want to go over, I'll get rid of that. But what I'm trying to do is follow those cracks. So I want to make sure that I'm not just randomly putting things all over the place, but I'm giving a reference to the material or the texture that was there. And so as I paint certain pieces out, I'll think, do I want to sample the other one, or I sample this one? So I got that crack there. I think that works, but over here definitely doesn't. As I start to paint this one out, there's clearly a rock or something right there, so that might be okay, but the rest of this plant definitely needs to go. So I'm just going to paint that out too. I'm going to leave this one. This one seems really off. This will be very tricky. So let's see if we can get sort of a plant to stay there, but not all of it. I'm going to try and end that around that rock there. So I'm going to use my brush tool and get smaller and try and paint so I can get to that shadow is. And then hide out anything else that doesn't really need to be there. Now, since we're going to be blending these two materials together, you're not going to have, if it's not 100% perfect, that's okay. It's not great if you're not trying to be perfect there, but if you're off by just a little bit, like that little piece of stem there, I'm pretty sure no one's going to see that. It's more of these details where you're having just a plant disappear or something of that nature. That's going to be very obvious to the viewer. So we need to make sure that if we do have anything like that, we are eliminating it. It's doing good. And it's not going to be just one tool that's going to get us that desired finished piece. We need to compare and contrast what we were working on by offsetting it and then painting out some spots on there, offsetting it, and then using the healing brush. So don't feel that this is going to be a 2-second exercise. This is going to be something that's going to take some time. So I'm noticing while I paint out over here that there's another plant showing up, and that's going to be a kind of pain in the butt. So I got to try and figure out what do I want to use to represent this. That's a color that stands out, and I don't like that. So we can paint that out. Be mindful of things like that. If something's dramatically different in color, then we should get rid of it. I'm gonna increase my brush, try and get this stuff going here too. Okay. And slow and steady, I'm getting there. Try and accent and keep that leaf here so it's not blending in. I like that leaf, so let's see if we can find the edge of that. There we go. I'll keep that one. I don't need it to have that far of a shadow though. That's a little bit strange. Alright. So that red just showed me my mask, and that's I think it's what is that button, the backslash. It's right next to your close bracket. And it's not just a matter of painting the ups and downs or the cross here. I'm going all over the place, and that's because I know if I don't try and incorporate this mask and a lot of the features here, it's gonna get very strange. Now I like some of the stuff over on this side right here, and I'm gonna try and bring some of that over, and to do that we're gonna use our clone stamp tool, increase the size of that, and I'm going to hold down the Alt key and click, and now I'm going to paint over here. Didn't want to do anything. Let's see if we can get that to work. Oh, sorry, I'm on my alpha. So Alt key and click. That helped. See if we can do some other spots with that. So I'll sample this over here and click. And yes, is it dangerous to keep doing this? You will start to notice repetition if you keep just using this clone stamp tool. So you want to use it in a way that you're not constantly sampling the same location. So you'll want to move around that brush when you're sampling. But it is an extremely helpful tool for getting rid of spots that are just not coming along. This is starting to look good. That has one major crack there. We'll see how that blends in the end. I still see this seam here, so I'm going to go back into my alpha and try and paint that out. It's starting to be better. It's starting to light up around there too. That's good. Alright. Okay. It's getting pretty good. There's some splotches here that I definitely need to adjust here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to grab all this, hit Control G. I'm going to call this the dry earth work. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to merge this group. And I'm going to duplicate it again. So right click duplicate and filter offset. So now I can see what this looks like when I'm offsetting it. And it's actually not too bad. It's got some spots that need some cleanup, but this is getting there. What I'm going to do is make another mask and just try to paint out some of these spots that kind of look like they're repeating a little bit. And if it's still not looking great, I can go into my clone tool again, sample and paint, try and brighten that up instead. If it's not doing anything, it's because you're painting, or you're trying to make an adjustment in your alpha, and that's not going to work. So make sure that you're on your layer that you're trying to adjust, not the layer's mask, if you're going to try and use your clone stamp on that. Let's see if I can grab this and brighten that up. This is a little bit blurry for a plant. I don't think I like that, so I'll change that. Okay, for the sake of time, not because I think it's done, there's some cleanup on here. Let's say that this is done. If I hit Control G and call this my dry earth final, and then grouping all that and then calling that dry earth. And am I naming these wrong? No. So that's dry earth, this one's bare earth, and it looks like I just completely glitched on the naming on this one, so we need to call this bare earth. And I might be losing my mind. What is going on here? Nope. There we go. I accidentally dragged that one in there, that's why. So bare earth, dry earth, we have them all in here. For whatever reason, bare earth got added over here. If you can't tell that, I need to go to sleep soon. It's only midnight right now, whatever. Alright, I have all those. That one, this one, and this one. Alright, so I've got these three. I need to save these out as PNGs and then go into Maya. So I'm going to save and then save scene, or save as. and PNG, and we'll call that one the dry earth. Asphalt. And last but not least, bare earth. Okay. Now, in Maya, you are supplied with a scene like this. Let me just save this as seamless start. Okay. You'll notice that if we look down the middle, we have this whole spot right here. That's the first thing that we're going to create. So if I go to face mode and select across here, we have too much. So we can deselect this. That's what we're going to use to create our road. So if we go into our Hypershade and go to create, actually let's go to shader, AI standard surface, and we'll call this asphalt. Now, my scene is deselected, but that's okay. First thing I'm going to do is link my color with the texture. So I'm going to go into File, go to my image, and let me go into my tileable ground, asphalt. There we go. Now, if I select those again, let's go from here to there. Deselect the ones I don't need. There we go. Right click, assign material to selection. Make sure that my hardware texturing is on. And let's go into Arnold. Let's turn that on. Okay. Now right now, I'm not seeing anything. Let's see what we got here. Yep, I linked in my color in the wrong spot. So if this ever happens, you can delete this, or you can just link out your alt color just by clicking on and dragging on that dot to over here. And now I'll delete this one out because I don't need my emission. I don't want that glowing. It's a road. So I've got this, but holy cow, is that gigantic. So this has to get fixed, and the way to do that is to go into our Place 2D Texture node, and let's say that this repeats right here. So this repeats 1 by 1, meaning that it's only going to repeat once. Maybe I need that to be, let's say 5 by 5. Let's see what that did. You'll notice immediately here it got smaller, and here it got smaller as well. But that's still not small enough, so what I'm going to do, let's say 15 by 15. That's not bad now. I don't know if that's what I'm going to keep as my final piece, but I'm going to leave that alone. Now, another thing I can do in here, if I have this selected, if I scroll down, you'll notice that there is, under geometry, bump mapping. I'm going to just link in that same texture with that. So I'll go into my material, and let's see what that's going to do. If I hit open on that, it gives some nice texture on it. But what's going on here? It looks chunky. That's because my texture now has this 2D texture node that's going from my color, and it generated another one that's going out into my my normal. So that's not exactly what we want. So what we can do is either try to relink it by going into here and then seeing what that will do. And that's already looking a lot better. I'm going to actually delete that one now. And so, got to give it a time to catch up here for Arnold to figure out what the heck it's doing. But you'll notice it gives a nice little bump on here. That kind of looks a little more realistic on us. Alright, so we got this going on. We have to build something new for our next spot. And I'm going to turn off Arnold because it's freaking my computer out here. I'm going to create a new material that we haven't done before. And this is going to be underneath the Arnold shader. Sorry, that was a demon trying to get out. And this is going to be the AI mix shader. So if I select this and I graph the network, because it's starting to get really messy in here. If I right click, go to graph network, I've got this. My out color is telling me in this node there's two different shaders it's looking for. So that's interesting. What this is basically saying to me is that I can add two different shaders in here and it's going to mix them together. And so to do that, I'm going to create two more Arnold shaders. So I'm going to create this AI standard surface, and I'm going to link the color in with the bare earth. And I'm also going to make sure that my texture map is high. So maybe that's a 15 by 15. I don't know. Just got to experiment. Now, I can link my color out to my shader. And now I'm also going to, and we could also, let's see, with that link, no. So it is a good idea, we'll just link the out color to the shader. And the other one is going to be, and let's name it first. So this is the bare earth. So we'll make sure that that's, let's see if we can graph that network. Okay, bare earth shader, and then I'm going to just duplicate that shading network, and then with my color, actually make sure that it's color. There we go. I was off again. So let's go to color, file, and this is going to be dry earth. So I have that one and this one. Oh, and I did it again. That's linking to sheen color. It needs to go to base color. There we go. So let me just delete that node. Okay, so these are both connecting to their textures, and this is going to connect to my shaders. Right now it doesn't know what to do. I'm going to tell this mix to do a noise map on it. Now, let's see. Okay. If I have everything selected here, deselect these, and assign that mix shader. It should work.